What do you guys want to talk about?
Let me talk to you.
Throwdown Nation, we are live. It is a Tuesday night. We are rolling on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter/X, on Facebook, and on Twitch. It is episode 124 of the Throwdown with Matt, and today we are throwing down with Atlanta-based by way of Hobbs End pro wrestler, the Sinister Stuntman himself, Spectre. How you doing tonight?
Feeling good.
Absolutely. So, for those of you that are watching this live, if you have questions or comments, just throw them in the chat and we'll either handle them as we go or do a little Q&A at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first and the most obvious question, and that is, how long have you been wrestling?
I have been wrestling for a little over 4 years now. So probably like 4 years and a couple months on top of that.
Gotcha. So who trained you?
The GOAT, AR Fox trained me. AR Fox, who's now wrestling on AEW. And the way I see it, if I had gone anywhere else, I don't know if I would have been a wrestler. The way Fox saw what I could do, and instead of trying to start me over, saw what I could do and build off that to become a wrestler. I'm forever grateful for Fox for that.
Absolutely. You know, I've had a number of WWA4 folks on this show, and you guys never fail to represent yourself and the school to just the highest level. And Fox has so much to be proud of.
Very much so.
The A4 is a special place.
It really is. It's a very it's something that it's magical, and it's well, one thing I'll say about Fox too is you realize, like, the knowledge he has is far beyond just, his high flying abilities. A lot of people talk about Fox and how great of a high flyer he is, but what I learned most from him was just match psychology and how to pace matches and match rhythm and everything like that. Fox is always someone who's willing to help you do whatever you want, in the sense of, like, if you want to do a crazy move, yeah, he'll teach you how to do that crazy move in the safest possible way. But what you really learn from him is when you bring your matches to him, and he can break down what you did wrong, what you did right, as well as the types of drills that he runs that really ingrain how to, have a rhythm in the match, and how to respond to certain things that are happening in the match.
Gotcha. And like you were saying, man, I have really enjoyed this recent run he's had on AEW. It's nice to see him in the spotlight, getting to show the world what he can do.
Oh yeah.
So, in terms of the early portions of your training, what was the most difficult aspect of professional wrestling for you to wrap your mind and body around?
The most difficult aspect, for me, it would probably be, well, I had a lot of experience prior to wrestling as a stuntman, and as someone, as a live stunt performer. So I had a lot of experience with dealing with live crowds and all that kind of stuff. And so when I came in, I already had a confidence about myself to be a performer. But even the kind of performer that I was, as soon as I got into wrestling, you get so excited. The hardest part is to slow down. In my opinion. So, like, once you get out there, you have in your mind what you want to do, and you just go, 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 go. Whether it's you're on the mic or whether it's you're doing moves, it's always like super. You're the adrenaline that's going, and everything that is going through your brain just has you wanting to get through it and get through everything fast. or do things fast to be more impressive. But the reality is, and one of the earliest things I learned from Fox is like, if you think you're going slow, go slower. It's slow things down. You got to let things settle in for the crowd. Sometimes if you're going too fast, the crowd cannot uh, uh, process what's happening if you're going too fast. And then on
Right.
top of that, if you're going too fast, you might miss a moment where you would connect with the crowd. So, as you know, as awesome as the speedy wrestling is, um, in my opinion, sometimes it lacks that connection with the crowd. It's great to watch. It's very impressive, but if you can slow down and grab the crowd with those moments, then you're creating more memorable matches more than more impressive matches, in my opinion.
Right. Right. You know, there's actually a saying in the special operations community in the military: slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and that applies in so many areas in life.
Oh
You
yes,
know.
and in almost every area of wrestling too. Like
Yeah.
I said, promos, matches, you know, moments, like all that. Yes, like slow is smooth and smooth seems fast. Yes,
Yeah.
that's fits perfectly within wrestling.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned that you've got a background in stunt work.
Hmm.
Tell us a bit about that. How did you get into being a stuntman?
Well, when I was growing up, I was obsessed with horror movies, and
Hmm.
when I was finally able to escape my hometown of Hobbs End, I got far away from there, and I went to Tucson, Arizona, where I uh, just wanted to find a way into film, and given that I was an athlete, given that I was used to getting beat up and all that kind of stuff, I saw a Craigslist ad for a stuntman for at the time they were called the Pinnacle Peak Pistoleros. And so I just was like, hey, that's the closest thing to film out in Arizona. So I gave it a try and ended up being hired by them. Worked 4 wonderful years with them, and essentially what it was a live Wild West stunt show where
Oh, cool.
we were gunfighting, shooting each other off buildings, getting blown up, and the work that went into those shows. It was also a family business, family run business. So my bosses started it, and now uh, after COVID, they 100% own the business, which is awesome, and they continue to do it. They've been running for I think like 28 years now, and
Nice.
so to be part of 4 years of that was wonderful, and yeah. So right now they're called the Pistoleros Wild West Show. Their name changed a little bit after COVID, but Pistoleros Wild West Show in Tucson, Arizona. If you're ever out in Tucson, Arizona, highly
Check them
suggest
out.
you check them
Yeah.
out because it's still uh, all the things I've done in wrestling, like the complexities of putting on those shows are still far outweigh anything I've ever done in wrestling, and I'm very proud of what they've taught me out there.
So I know that, aside from, I guess, the traditional professional wrestling, you also do some work in deathmatch.
Hmm.
Was that sort of an offshoot of your love of horror as well as your stunt work, or how did gravitating to deathmatch work come about?
It was kind of a bit about my love of horror or my love of Tarantino blood and violence like style. I do think that there's as of I love many different films, but I'm someone who loves to see blood and gore on camera, and I think it's
Mhm.
it's fun. So when I started wrestling, I looked into deathmatch wrestling, and I just wanted to at least I wanted to see if I could do it. It was part of
Right.
more of like a challenge to myself, and not only if I could do it, but if I could do it and tell like a story. You know, because a lot of death matches I see, not at the higher level. Like I think the higher level death matches are awesome, but like some of the mid to lower level death matches are just hitting each other with weapons and bleeding all over the place.
Yeah,
Not
violence for the sake of violence, not for
exactly.
a story. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I really wanted to see if I could do that and tell a story because I've been, you know, even before I was a stuntman, I was a script writer. I've been so into film like my whole life, and so I've always loved telling stories and stories that get reactions out of people. And I think that deathmatch gets quite the reactions out of people. So yeah, it was mainly a start of when I came in. I just wanted to try it and see what it was, see if I could do it, see how it was, and it's tough when when you want to do it and you don't have any experience. There's a lot of people who, you know, you reach out to, and because you don't have experience, they don't want to use you. Um,
Right.
but luckily, I got my first death match against Nathan Mowry, the Kill Billy,
Oh yeah.
2 years into my wrestling career, and we put on quite a show there. And he got the win, but that bastard's not gonna. He's not gonna be laughing for too long.
No, because you've got another one coming up that we'll talk about
Yes.
later.
Yeah, well, we're trying to get that rubber match. I'm pushing for it to be at Blood and Honey on June 29th. It's up to that coward if he wants to accept it or not. But uh, but yeah, that's our rubber match. We had a death match out in Gainesville, Georgia, and then um, then he came to the WWA 4, and we had it was a hardcore on the edge of death match at WWA 4, and I won that match. So we're 1-1. We gotta break that tie, and in that sense, I'm gonna break his spine at the same time.
Nice. You were mentioning Tarantino. I'm a big Tarantino fan myself. My personal favorite is Reservoir Dogs. Absolutely love that movie.
Same.
I actually need to watch that one again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's a great one, and I mean personally, I think it took me a couple of times to like really figure out which one because they're all really good and
Oh
Tarantino's
yeah.
fantastic, but I would say like his absolute best was Inglorious Bastards. Like when I first saw it, I didn't think so, but the more I watched it, the more I realized like how fantastic it is. Reservoir Dogs was not my top one probably before that, to the point where actually when I was first learning how to write scripts, the first full script that I finished is a very similar story to Reservoir Dogs,
Hmm.
and I didn't think about it at the time, but once I finished it, I looked at it, I was like, oh wow, this is probably my love of that movie on my own script. So yeah, no, Tarantino's been a big influence for me in my uh, coming up and growing up, and it was great to grow up in that time where I'm 35. A lot of people think I'm younger, but I'm 35 and um, grew up in the 90s, so I got to see a lot of those Tarantino films as they were coming out.
Gotcha. So, you mentioned that you've been a fan at different different levels, but since you were a kid, a
Mhm.
fan of wrestling, what would you say is your earliest wrestling related memory?
The earliest one I can remember, I can't remember my age. It was me and my sister. We were very young, and we were in my parents' bedroom because my parents my parents had one of those black boxes that allowed you to get the pay-per-views.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so we were watching wrestling on one of those in my parents' room, and like obviously we had been watching wrestling before that, but because me and my sister, I know at the time we knew who Big Van Vader was,
Oh yeah.
and I know we disliked him and we always wanted him to lose, and but the most strongest like earliest memory I have is Undertaker's entrance against Van Vader, because that's the first time I saw Undertaker. That's the first time
Hmm.
I saw anything in wrestling like that. It was just, pitch black, Undertaker walking in, the camera's flashing, you just get a flash of him. They had the camera at a very low angle, so it made him even taller than he actually is.
And he's
just him
pretty
coming
tall.
in, and yeah,
I
him
mean-
coming in, and at the time, I think Vader had been winning a lot of matches, and him coming in, doing the sitting up from getting beat up, like he's on the ground, and then he does his dead man sit up, like that got me hooked, because I was such a horror fanatic at the time, and he was really the first horror character that I had seen in wrestling like that, and it was just, yeah, me and my sister were just kind of in awe of it, and that moment, again, probably like 4 or 5 years old or something, but like it was so young but so vivid in my memory of just his entrance, of him walking in, rolling the eyes in the back of his head, like that was what hooked me as a kid.
Absolutely. Well, I was just looking over at the chat, and Marianne Morden loves you.
Hope you love violence, Marianne. It sounds like you do. If you love me, I love you back.
Speed round. Matt Tremont.
Beast, uh, crazy beast.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're mostly a wrestling related show, but we do dabble a little bit in pop culture, and I'm always looking for recommendations. So, by any chance, are you watching or listening to anything cool right now?
Well, I'm always watching movies. I am.
Yeah.
I have the A list, the AMC A list, so I go to movie theaters and watch movies all the time. Try to fill out like 2, 3 a week. One thing that I can 1000% suggest as a film guy, and for you, if you haven't seen it, this was a very Tarantino film, was Sinners.
I've heard really good things about that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fantastic. It's and not only as like a vampire movie, but as a cinephile, as just it's a movie about the themes in it involve ancestry, music. It's just fantastically done. Ryan Coogler's done a lot of great things, but this is his best work by far. This is probably, in my opinion, the best movie since COVID happened, because
really.
it's one of the only ones that I've seen at post COVID that feels like uh, a movie that happened before COVID. Because Tarantino mentioned it. He said he thinks movies died in 2019. I can kind of sort of agree with him. I mean, I don't think they died, but they have a different feel to them. As someone who's worked in the film industry, after COVID, it became less about creativity and more about efficiency. And it's like they just want to get the movie out there as fast as possible and make the money. And Sinners, though, felt like they took their time with everything. Everything had a reason behind it, and it's just a beautiful film from start to finish. And it's got enough. Vampire stuff in there for the horror fans, and it's been fantastic and very Tarantino / Robert Rodriguez style there. So if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you see it in theaters. It's one you definitely need to see on the big screen.
Nice. I was just looking at the Instagram chat, and our boy Dion Summers is watching on Instagram. So shout out to him.
Shout out Deion Summers. I remember you spraying me with that squirt gun and costing me the match. I remember that. Don't think I didn't forget.
Yep. Well, it's I guess it's summertime.
Oh yeah, it is. He is in his element right now.
Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking to the wrestler side of you, outside of wrestling, what person inspires you the most and why?
Well, to be honest, most of my inspirations as a wrestler, I would say within wrestling, I watched the Attitude Era. Didn't really watch much after that until I became a wrestler. So within wrestling, it's that Attitude Era feel and that ECW style of hardcore that I love. But most of my like storytelling inspiration and my abilities to tell the stories through fighting come from outside of wrestling, and my biggest inspiration is actually Jackie Chan. And I,
Nice.
as a stuntman, I did a lot of studying. Well, I mean, obviously, I loved Jackie Chan growing up, but when I became a stuntman, I went down a crazy Jackie Chan hole because the amount of movies he's made is insane. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like if you you know, a lot of people think, yeah, he's made a lot of movies, but like if you go down, you know, all the way back to like Drunken Master and on, you got Project A, you got, you know, you've got all these, like, not all of them are good, but they almost all have fantastic stunt sequences, and a lot of
Yeah.
them don't make sense, but they're just trying to get from stunt sequence to stunt sequence.
Right.
And so when you go down that hole, it's just Jackie Chan had just this magic about him to, uh, first off, he wasn't afraid to get beat up,
Yeah.
like let his character get beat up, and that's a big thing, especially when you're talking about baby faces. Like if you want the crowd to be on your side, you need to show that you need to come up from somewhere. So you need to get knocked down in order to get back up. And Jackie Chan was a master of that. Not only that, too, though, his characters were very relatable. Like they weren't 100. He wasn't 100% like the nicest person, but you know he was a good person.
Yeah.
But you know, so the creativity he had with building that, and then when you watch his fight scenes, you can really see a storytelling aspect of it. One of my favorite fight scenes is from Legend of the Drunken Master. It's the final fight scene where he's fighting the guy who's got crazy kicks and stuff, and you know, nowadays a lot of fight scenes seem very choreographed and very, you know, like, oh, we're just going to do the coolest things at the time. But Jackie Chan was doing a thing where, you know, the guy was working him with his feet, and so then he ended up grabbing him and wrapping his feet with his legs, and then the guy was doing this. So like there's a lot of thought that goes into Jackie Chan's fight scenes in order to under they help you understand what's going through his mind as a fighter, and why he's doing what moves he's doing, rather than just, oh, he's doing cool moves back to back to back to back that I don't really understand, but it looks cool, you know. So a lot of times there's just that, and then another big inspiration, um, which goes way back, and this is also from my stunt experience that I studied, was Buster Keaton. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Buster Keaton was a guy way ahead of his time. It was, you know, probably Hollywood's first stuntman, first acting stuntman, I guess. Like I don't know if it's like if there was someone before him, but there was not anyone as big as him at that time doing what he was doing, and he just had he had a knowledge of how to fool the audience with camera tricks, and how to yeah, for uh, the silent film era was doing things that, you know, I'd say probably like 80% of the wrestlers couldn't do, you know, like as far as athletic wise, and yeah, so he's a big inspiration as far as it goes with um, I don't know how, like, how would you say it? Like reinventing the wheel, or sort of just using tricks and creativity to bring something new that at the time was not seen before.
Right, right. And you were mentioning in Jackie Chan, you know, how often his characters were, for lack of a better term, flawed heroes.
Hmm.
And I've always found that interesting, you know, and in my wrestling fandom, I tend to gravitate more toward the heels, simply because I find them to be more compelling characters. A white meat babyface, I tend to find, for the most part, to be extremely boring. I
Yeah,
mean,
I agree, and
and you know,
yeah,
the heels have, you know, there's usually a reason, there's a backstory as to why they are the way they are. You know, they're not usually being assholes to be assholes. There's a reason, and
yes,
getting into the psychology and the backstory is just so cool.
yeah,
And you know, that's sort of a great segue into the next question. You know, they say that the best in-ring personas are usually a lot of yourself turned up to 11. So tell us about Spectre. Tell us about the in-ring persona. Tell us about the lore. Lay it on
Yes.
us.
Well, it's exactly that. It is me turned up to 11. A lot of people talk about my face paint and how cool it looks, but I got to correct them. It is not face paint. It is my soul leaking out of my eyes. See, I come from a town called Hobbs End where people the town was cursed or something. I still don't know what happened to this town, but living in that town, it molds you from the inside and it turns you into eventually turning you into a monster. And luckily I escaped that town before it could turn me into a monster. However, it has blackened my soul to the point where it can leak out of my eyes like this. And this is usually how it comes out when I'm craving that violence, when I want to bring the violence to people. And that's the other thing about my character too, is you know, a lot of wrestlers are out here going for the win. They're all pinning for the win. If you watch me, I tend not to, because I want to. The idea for me is that people came because they want to see violence. They want to see. I think it's human nature to enjoy violence. You know, there's a part of us that enjoys it no matter what, and you know, whether it's subconsciously or consciously. You know, all the violent movies we have. You know, there's just violence inherent within humanity. And so when I came to wrestling, I found a place where I could show that violence, and I want to do that to please everyone. And so that's why I don't necessarily always go for the win, but I go for the destruction and I go for the chaos, and you know, go to please everyone else and satisfy their violent cravings like I have that bleed out of my eyes essentially.
Nice. So tell us about, you know, if you can narrow it down, tell us about your favorite match that you have been a part of.
That I've been a part of. Whew, yeah, I have quite a few that I've been a part of that I absolutely you know, adore. Recently, it was me versus Parker Lee last year. That was a fantastic hardcore match. You know, and most of them always end up being hardcore matches. As far as regular matches go, me versus Damian Tangra. Me. Um, I also, you know, adore my matches with Nathan Mowry and Liam Gray, and I have a lot of different matches that just came out so well and so creative and so violent that I love them so much. However, there is one match that is forever. I don't think I'm gonna have a better match than this one, um, and the meaning behind it was very very strong too. It was um, me versus Keelan Cole in a hardcore match at the WWA 4, and there's so many reasons that this was such a, like, this is my favorite match, and arguably my best match. You know, one being it was at the 4. It's still, the 4 is still probably my favorite place to wrestle. Just, you know, just because there's so much meaning to it for me, and anyone who takes the time out of their day to come see us there. It's, I just, you know, I'm so grateful for those people. Um, Me and Keelan wrestled. I want to say uh, it was two, maybe three. No, it was 2 years ago, and it was kind of like, oddly enough, it was kind of coming off. You know, there wasn't really any stipulations making it anything special. Um, However, when Keelan approached me and wanted to have a match, he had some crazy ideas, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, at the time I was doing the whole going around the indies, you know, doing all this stuff. So in my, I actually was telling him, you know, these are such good ideas that you should probably do them somewhere else. You know, you should probably do them where, you know, you're going to have more eyes on you, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, Keelan kind of opened up to me about, frustrations within the, you know, not being booked certain places and not getting, you know, the recognition that he thought he, you know, deserved. And I agreed with him, and I felt for him because I was also going through that frustration too. So we worked it out and we decided, yes, let's have this match. Let's do what you want to do. And Keelan went balls out. So I'm not someone who's in the ring, sitting there trying to beat someone up and prove a point or anything like that. I will usually match the energy of someone else. If they're trying to be a little more safe, I'll be a little more safe because I don't want to. I just want us to have fun in the ring. And
Right.
Keelan wanted to go balls out, so I was like, all right, I'm going balls out. And I felt that early in the match. That match involved. Well, the biggest spot in the match was the end. Keelan went up to the ladder and hung from the ceiling of the WWA 4 and came down with an elbow from the top. Uh, Unexpectedly on my point, I thought he was going to shimmy out and give me a splash, but he just went for an elbow, and it was beautiful. It was one of the loudest times the 4 has been, like, and since I've been there, and yeah, I have a lot of scars from that match. I also did. There was something when Jay Briscoe passed away. There was a spot he did that I always wanted to do, which was him on the outside holding a door and someone diving into the door. And
Mm-hmm.
and with what Keelan wanted to do in the match, I was like, okay, well, let's fit this in there too. And so I got to do that spot as well, and it went, it. I mean, it was not. I wouldn't say would call it pleasant, but I was happy that I got it done, and that we did it beautifully. And so yeah, Keelan, essentially I was
Nice,
pulling the door out from under the ring, holding it up, and Keelan
nice
came diving.
tribute.
Yeah, Keelan, yeah, and the tribute was great. And Keelan came diving and hit the door in the right spot, knocked me over. And yeah, what else did we do in that match? Uh, we had a lot of ladder spots. I had a chair with thumbtacks on it. Was trying to sit him on it. He ended up throwing my head into that chair and having me bleed everywhere. There was a shopping cart that I DDT'd him on. What else? Yeah, he was smacking me around with a ladder. I ended up returning the favor with a small ladder. Yeah, it was just that. And I think that was also one of the first times I hit the coast to coast with a chair. I threatened the ref, since it was a no DQ match. I threatened the ref and made him hold the chair as I coast to coasted it into Keelan's face. So, but what ended up being super special about that match was just that not only, like, we did that match. We had this frustration about ourselves and about the business that we wanted to get over, and we knew that we were telling that story. We knew that. And I don't know if, I can't speak for Keelan, but I didn't think that anyone else would get it. I thought everyone would just see this as a great opportunity or a great match, like very entertaining match. But a couple months later, Georgia Wrestling History wrote a whole article about the match. And I was kind of shocked. It was just an article about that specific match. And they were nailing the points. They were saying, Keelan and Spectre were out there trying to show everyone, hey, we're in the wrestling business too. Like, we're here, and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of like it felt really special that we put that match together, and not only did, like, we do it for us, but other people understood what we were trying to say. And yeah, and it was just beautiful. And so it's hard to say, like, it's possible I might have a better match than that in the future or something like that, but I don't know if I'll ever have, like, a more meaningful match than that one.
Gotcha. And having that article written had to be so affirming too.
Yes, and it's also it also so I also, in wrestling, I had a lot of personal goals. Like, I don't, my goals don't really align with necessarily titles and uh working for certain businesses. Like, I just had my own personal goals when I came into the business. One of them being like, hey, I want to have a death match. I achieved that. That achieved one of my goals was, like, I had a goal that I wanted to do something at the A4 that brought eyes to the A4. And obviously everyone in the business pretty much knows A4, so it's, I wasn't like, but I accidentally got that with this one when that article was written, because the article pointed out, hey, go check out this show. Hey, like, this happened at A4, and so I felt like I checked off a goal on my list there, and that felt pretty good. And again, shout out to Keelan Cole, because without without him coming to me with the ideas that when we started the match, and I I felt that first. He gave me a drop kick to the back of my head, and I felt that, and I was like, okay, he wants to go hard. Let's go hard. And then that's kind of how it ended up.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking again at the Instagram chat, and the Wall Tyler Stevens is in the audience over on Instagram. So
Yes, the Wall. He's gotten. Oh my gosh, Tyler Stevens is. I was around the 4 when he first came around. He'd already been training out in North Carolina and or South Carolina, one of the Carolinas. I can't remember which one. But to see where he is now is just awesome because he's grown so much. Like I remember, when he came in, I was giving him some advice, here and there, and now it's like I look to him for advice. He's
right.
so knowledgeable, and he's so and he's someone who's, when you're talking about like taking your time and grabbing those moments, Tyler Stevens is one of those guys who's just takes things nice and slow, gets those moments, and then puts that exclamation mark with like a big power move. And Tyler's killing it. I love it.
Absolutely. He's somebody I've been working on getting on the show, but scheduling has just been difficult. But hopefully one of these days, because I would love to pick his brain.
It's gonna happen. I'm sure. But yeah, he's become a very busy guy, with wrestling and his work and everything. So
no doubt.
But hopefully you can get him on there.
Oh yeah, for sure. So speed round. Sami Zayn.
Someone I didn't know about too much, from the fact that I didn't watch wrestling a lot. But however, the last few WrestleManias, I'm convinced is a fantastic storyteller. Loved his match with Gunther. Loved his work with even the Jackass guys. I think he's a very. I don't know if I would say like underrated, but like just like overlooked at the kind of stuff that he does. I love what I see from him.
Yeah. And, going back and looking at some of his stuff from his indie days as El Generico is actually really interesting, seeing that aspect of Sami Zayn.
So. Yeah. I've seen a little bit. I wasn't around too much there, but I've seen some of those clips, and it's, it doesn't surprise me he's where he's at right now.
No, not at all. So, do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan? A match that just stands out to you?
Yes, I do, and it's honestly the match that it was when me and my sister were, again, children, and we were watching it, and essentially the Hell in a Cell Undertaker versus Mankind match. We watched that live on television, and that blew my mind. And as a kid, like, we were going crazy, and there's a specific moment in that match that is the reason behind why I use thumbtacks, is when Mankind pulled out the thumbtacks and dumped him out. Like the way, like, my mind just couldn't fathom what was going on. Like, I'd never seen thumbtacks at that time. So when he dumped them out, and we're just like, and then they start doing, the teasing, falling into the thumbtacks, and then eventually he goes into them not once but twice after, all that he's been through. Like, that moment for me that like kind of transcended wrestling, just because, like, again, like, he was doing something I'd never expected in a wrestling ring or seen at the time. I don't think he was the first one to do it, but like, my young age, that's the only time I saw it. So that's part of why I use thumbtacks as a regular weapon from time to time. And not only that, like, if you've ever watched my matches, when I do use thumbtacks, I don't bring them out in a bag. Because here's the thing, like, at that time when Mankind brought it out in the bag, like, no one knew what it was.
Right.
But nowadays, like, from wrestling, like, wrestling happening a lot, when people bring out that bag, a lot of people are like, oh, it's thumbtacks. And sometimes it's something different, but usually you're like, oh, is it thumbtacks and thumbtacks? And then when they dump it out, oh, it's thumbtacks. Yeah, it's exciting. but it doesn't give you that shock that I had the first time I saw them, and it, like, had no idea what was in there. So what I do is I don't bring them out in a bag. I bring them out in something different. You know, I've brought them out in a popcorn bag before. Uh, I've had them in an umbrella and opened them and let it rain.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I've had them in a pumpkin. Um, yeah, I had them in mixed in with Halloween candy. So yeah, it's like as long as, like, I know at this point, I think people know that I bring thumbtacks out a lot. So I try my best to even more, like, if they're expecting thumbtacks to happen, that they come from somewhere that is not expected. Yeah. Yeah. The Parker Lee match we had, I had him in a pinata, and
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, but I also used the other pinatas so that people wouldn't expect, oh, like, if anyone knew me very well and knew that, like, oh, I'm guessing that there's thumbtacks in there. I had two other pinatas. One had a brick in it and one was just a regular one. So that way, you know, kind of swerves them a little bit. But yeah, the
Yeah.
reason I do that is because I just loved that feeling that I had of, like, oh shit, like, thumbtacks, like, you know, like, that moment was just so special to me. And um, so I kind of use the thumbtacks as a tribute to Mick Foley and Mankind, and then I use that, you know, uh, element of surprise to try to get people to feel that feeling that I felt when I first saw them.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, you know, kind of a related question, sort of piggybacking onto that one. Do you have an all-time favorite promo?
Interesting. Hmm. Looking back, so I ended up meeting CM Punk on when I worked on Heels, and interestingly enough, like, at that time, you know, like, I had heard of CM Punk. I'd known, you know, he was a world champ, and uh, you know, big name in the WWE and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I wasn't a wrestling fan, so, like, the only thing I really knew him from was a couple movies I'd seen him in.
Hmm.
So like, after I met him, I sort of looked up more about him, you know, like, more of, like, you know, I looked up the pipe bomb promo, and wow, that's a fantastic one right there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, um, but I'd say, like, so I'm giving a shout out to that because, like, there's a lot of promos that I've seen, uh, that were from my time of not really following wrestling that are really good, but I can't really, uh, say that they would be my favorite just because I wasn't there at, you know, in that moment. I would say I would probably have to say, you know, Stone Cold's first Austin 316 promo is probably my all-time favorite, because it's what started my love for Stone Cold, and then Stone Cold is my all-time favorite wrestler of all time. So I would say, yeah, the Austin 316 says I just whooped your ass promo is probably
Yeah,
my favorite one and most meaningful one to me.
gotcha. Yeah, man, I absolutely loved Heels. You know, I don't know what the feasibility is, but you know, I keep praying for a third season.
Me too. I mean, I don't even, like, at this point, because I worked with Stars, it's with Netflix. I don't know if they'd have me back, but that, to me, I don't care. I just want a season three. Like, it was a very good show, and it was a
Oh, it
very, very
was.
awesome show to be a part of too. Like, that was one of my favorite times of my life. It was a lot of hard work, but it was just, you know, being a film guy and moving out here to be in
Yeah.
film and being on that set with some great people, you know, fantastic people, part of that cast, especially, like, people like Chris Bauer and Alexander Ludwig. They were
Hmm.
fantastic people to be around. Robbie Ramos and Maldonado, and yeah, and just there was too many people to really like. And on top of that, you know, actually, as growing up, I was a big fan of Tommy Boy, and, you know, Pete Siegel was the director of Tommy Boy. So to be able to
Yeah.
work under someone that you know, to be able to work under someone whose work, you know, was very important to you as a child is always great. But But yeah, I hope
Absolutely.
that with the way the series is going, you know, I didn't watch the first season until I got on the second season. Then I was like, oh, okay, let me watch the first season, see the show, and I'm more of a film guy than a TV guy, so I was kind of expecting, oh, it'll probably be okay. But it was really good. The first season was, and then once the season 2 came out and got to be a part of that and watch as it unfolded.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
show that I really wish would keep going.
Same here. I mean, you know, it was so well written and well executed. I mean, you
Yeah, and
know,
the character development through season 2
oh
is
yeah.
fantastic, especially Wild Bill's character,
Mm-hmm.
his development, and that's probably the biggest reason I want to see season 3. I want to see more of what Wild Bill is becoming, and yeah, that it's just it's phenomenal, and and the funny thing is, you know, like I said, I'm more of a horror and Tarantino like bloody shoot 'em up kind of guy. I'm not really much of a
Right.
drama guy, but this one, I you know.
Yeah.
And my mom watches it. My mom isn't really much of a wrestling fan, but she watches it. So like all these people who are not wrestling fans think it's a fantastic show as well.
Yep. Yep. So this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent? Who would Spectre love to share a ring with?
Well, definitely, if we're talking about people who are still wrestling, um, I don't think he's retired, and I mean, I would absolutely love to step in the ring with Rob Van Dam for sure,
Mm-hmm.
um, and especially if it is, and like even more so if it were a hardcore match.
Yeah.
You know, I know he's up there in age, but I've seen him work, and I see that he can still do stuff. So I'd love to work him again. Recently, he liked one of my posts, and that felt like Cloud9, because Rob's definitely like um, like one of my top 3 wrestlers for sure. So he would be a big opponent that I would love to work. I have a lot of I have a lot that I've taken from Chris Jericho. You know, I was a big Chris Jericho fan growing up, so I would love to work Chris Jericho in the ring. And then as far as the past goes, I'd probably just say, you know, Mick Foley for all the inspiration he has given me. You know, I'd love to step in the ring with him. I know he's still kind of dabbling in it a little bit, but not really like match wise. So it'd
Yeah.
be cool to just share the ring with Mick Foley as well. Like that, you know, I'd say those 3. Um, I would, you know, and again, I would love to wrestle AR Fox again. I've wrestled Fox twice, but you know, Fox, in my opinion, is the best out there when it comes to in ring work right now. I mean, I might be biased, but I truly, you know, I watch a lot of wrestling now, and there's a lot of people that impress me. You know, like, um, but every time I watch Fox's matches, I just get so excited. I get so, you know, despite how many times I've seen him wrestle, it's always exciting. It's always shocking. He's always doing something crazy and unexpected, and yeah, it's so Fox would be in there as well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So this is a question that I've done in virtually all of these, and with your mind and your perspectives, I'm interested to hear your response to this. And that is, you know, in terms of the wrestler side of you, if you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
I would rather be great in the ring. And from my perspective, and this will be, you know, my film side perspective too, because I have this belief in film, like as a script writer, that film is a visual media, and so therefore you should be able to tell the story visually without having to tell it audibly. So that's why I think that I would much rather prefer to have better in-ring skills. All right, hold on. Am I there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're.
Sorry, my phone started getting weird.
Oh,
But
no
yeah,
problem.
so as far as the in ring, yeah, I would choose the in ring skills over the promo skills, because wrestling is a visual medium, and if you, in my opinion, if you should first and foremost be able to tell the story visually rather than audibly. Um, if you're sitting like, yeah, and a good movie example would be like if I'm, um, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a simple example, but basically like rather than like like be like, oh, this person's like writing a whole monologue explaining why this person's evil over just having a scene where that person's killing a bunch of people. Like the audio medium is more for like say radio or music or something like that. That's where audio becomes most important. But in wrestling and in film, it's all about the visual storytelling. So that's why I think I would much rather be a better in-ring performer than a promo cutter, simply because that's kind of what you're aiming for. You want people to watch what you're doing and learn from that.
Got you. So, using a literary term here, do you have a foil, an arch rival, someone that you have amazing in-ring chemistry with, that you know if you're working that person, it's going to be a banger? Do you have a wrestler like that in your life?
I actually have, off the top of my head, three. I'll break them down real quick.
Okay.
First one is that piece of shit, Nathan Mowry. No matter what, like, no matter what happens, we end up, we've only had two matches, but they're both some of the best matches of my career. And despite him trying to dodge a third match with me, I know that we would put on a banger if we have that third match, which I'm aiming for June 29th at Blood and Honey. And I'm going to try to make sure that he has no choice but to do that. So yeah, Nathan Mowry is someone that just there's a chemistry there, there's a hate there that we just go balls out. There's another person in Cavron Canyon. Um, Cavron, I was someone who was at the Four when I started there, and Cavron, we've had probably like 5 or 6 different hardcore matches, and the last couple of them we really didn't even have to talk much about beforehand. Um, we just flow, and we feel each other out, and so shout out to him. I've learned a lot from Cav, but we've just had so many great matches at the Four, and had so much fun with them. And so Cavron's someone that I essentially can just you know hear, 30 minutes, like, oh, you're going up against Cavron, and not be worried, because it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be great. And then the other person I would say is the person that started at the A4 the same day that I started, which is Rico Gonzalez. Um, Rico and me have had a rivalry. That's probably the biggest rivalry I've had, as well as he is probably the greatest tag team partner I've had. So in that sense, me and Rico have just gelled really well, because we came up together. We both started on the same day. Um, we even came up with certain drills that are still being used at the A4. One of them being the pin drill. Um, but we just would come in and we would just work with each other. I think I showed him how to, I had some ideas that turned into certain moves for him. He had ideas that turned into certain moves for me. And then whenever we got in the ring, it was always just a banger. The most recent time we fought each other was at Classic City Wrestling in Nashville. And um, yeah, I think I personally believe, that we had the crowd at the loudest during our match. I don't know what anyone else thinks. And that match was just unbelievable. And it was so easy because we just know each other so well. We know each other's move set. We know we know how to have fun with each other.
Right.
And so yeah, so that's why I said the rivalry between us, where we were bitter rivals, turning into a dysfunctional tag team that eventually turned into a functional tag team. We just throughout all of that, it was always fun, and it was always creative, and Rico's going to go on and do some phenomenal things. Rico's just he's just he's so good at all that he does.
Absolutely. So, what is your take on the role that social media is playing as a promotional tool in wrestling, specifically indie wrestling?
Um, well, I'm not much of a social media guy. Probably given my age, 35. I do social media. I prior to wrestling, I had social media just for the sake of being in um, touch with people that I couldn't be in touch with, like in person. But once I became a wrestler, I did recognize the importance of social media. And the cool thing about it, though, is that at least on the indie side of it, you are in complete control of your own social media. So you get to tell the story the way that you want to tell it. And so part of like what I wanted to do when I came into wrestling was, uh, and I typically, I see the promos that people cut, and sometimes like, even if they're good, like they're a little cringy to me, just because again I'm a film guy and I do a lot more. I'm less reality TV, more cinematic. So it gave me the opportunity to be a to work on my cinematic side with my promos, and not only that, or with my video edits, and sort of express who I am and my interests through these wrestling edits as well. So I think it's really great that the social media is there. However, I do also uh, I do have a little bit of there to me there's a veil that is between the wrestlers and the general public that I think is very important to be there. And sometimes social media just pulls back that veil a little too much.
Right,
Um, um, Not in the sense that it's like ruining what's going on behind the scenes, but it's just like it's like wrestling is so much more exciting when it's believable, and
right,
when you don't know that the guys behind the scenes are friends, or
right,
that certain things were planned out, or that the guy was just faking an injury or something like that.
right,
Like if like social media is awesome, but if you can keep that veil, if you can keep that separation, and then you can engage the audience more, in my opinion. So I think
right.
that it's both. It's both.
It's a blessing and a curse. Yeah,
Yes, it's a blessing and a curse, and depending on how you use it, it can be helpful, or. But again, I don't know. Nowadays, people really want to see behind the curtain, and I can't blame
yeah,
wrestlers if they do want to show behind the curtain, because that's what a lot of people want to see. But personally, I just think that you get a stronger connection, or much more interest, if you don't really know all of that.
right, right. And in the age of the internet, keeping kayfabe and actually having genuine surprises in wrestling has become such a difficult thing to pull off. I mean,
Yeah,
because the dirt sheets are out there, you
yeah.
know, and if somebody spots somebody at an airport in a city, it's going to get out.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh,
And not only that, like social media, you have so many people trying to predict what's going to happen, and because there's so many different predictions, there's chances that one of those predictions is right. So
right,
it's a little, in my like, personally, I don't like I'll have what I think might happen in my head, but I don't try to sit here and like predict, because I personally, like, I don't think too far ahead, because I want to experience what they want to show me. Like, it's the same with films. I try not to read any reviews about films before I see them, because I just want to see it. I'll read reviews after I see them to see what people say as well, or how they analyze it, but I want to make my own analysis of it. And I also don't want to sit here and think too far ahead. Like, I think nowadays people try too hard to think about what's going to happen and try to predict what's going to happen, as opposed to just being there for the moment, and like yeah, what they did might have been predictable or might be kind of on the nose, but as long as you're just watching it and sort of like experiencing it, like it's a much better time than if you're sitting here being like, oh, see, I knew that was going to happen. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, don't, yeah, I'm much more of a like live in the now kind of guy. Don't think too far ahead. Don't dwell on the past too long.
Gotcha. So, knowing everything that you know at this point in your life, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
um, be more confident in yourself. When I was younger, when I was younger, I was hyper focused on basketball and wanting to be, an NBA player actually. Uh, and I had a lot of skills, but I just didn't have the confidence that I think that, uh, like if you've put in the work and you know that that this is what you want to do, then have the confidence in yourself to be, to, to, to be the best, I guess. I like it, once I started wrestling and realizing like, I'm having fun and doing all this stuff and people are enjoying it, at this age, like grasping that confidence was so much easier, as far as back then where, just the slightest thing would kind of falter it. So, if you're putting in the work and people are enjoying what you do, then have the confidence. I wish when I was younger that like I, didn't shy away because I didn't think I was good enough, or didn't or wasn't what people were looking for. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
in my younger self, I would tell myself, yeah, definitely have that confidence instead.
Yeah. And we can all be our own worst enemies in those circumstances. I
Yeah.
mean, so do you have any pre-show traditions? Any things that you try to do consistently before you walk through the curtain?
Not really, actually. Um, with what I did at stunt work, I would say my first year of doing the stunt show, I had tons of nerves going out there and acting in front of people and being silly and doing all these crazy stunts. And so like I always had nerves. And then about a year in, because we would do shows, uh, well, when I first started, it was 7 nights a week, but it eventually like got down to 5 nights a week, 2 shows a night. They were 30-minute shows. So you do that for years on end, then you kind of get used to what it's like being out on stage. So for me, I don't know, I like the only pre-ritual I have is just, sometimes I listen to certain music, but uh I would say this though, I will say that, the only time I am nervous prior to a match, even if I don't know who my opponent is or anything like that, the only time I'm very nervous prior to a match is when I'm in Gorilla about to step out.
Hmm.
And part of it is just like I don't know, and it happens all the time, but part of it's always just like, okay, I'm about to step out. Are people gonna, you know, accept what I'm giving them, or like, are they gonna get it, or what? Like, there's just this weird little moment where I just get a little bit nervous and a little bit nervous, and I'll pace back and forth and get myself, amped up and kind of that, and then as soon as I step out of the curtain, it's gone. Like the nerves are gone, and I'm just in that moment. So yeah, so there's just only that small moment before grill. Like never, like if I'm, no matter who I'm working or how long of a time I have ahead of time to speak to that person or anything like that, um, I don't have any nerves then. But it's just like right before my entrance when I'm in gorilla, that's where I'm like, oh man, are people gonna, you know, are people gonna cheer me or boo me, or are people gonna give a shit? Like honestly, I don't really care about the cheering and booing, but it's like I just want people to be having fun and be interested in what I'm doing. So there's
Right.
just a slight nerve in gorilla when just before that might not happen, but then as soon as I step out, it's just gone.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So, just kind of a quick rundown. What all do you carry in your wrestling gear bag? Do you have anything interesting or unusual that you carry in your gear?
Um, I almost always have a chain with me, just in
Okay.
case. I mean, I used to come out with a chain all the time. However, it caused me to slip up in one of my entrances, so I stopped coming out with it. Um, and so the chain's usually in there. I tend to also have Vaseline in there, or vapor rub. That's what that's called,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just in case like I'm feeling like a little like my sinuses or like my lungs feel a little like rough. So like if they're feeling a little rough, then I'll rub like a little bit like on my chin or under my nose, and then it clears that all up. So that's the only thing I would say that's very abnormal that I carry around in my bag.
Gotcha. You know, it's interesting. Many years ago, I for a number of years I worked as a paramedic,
Hmm.
and I used to carry a little vial of vapor rub around in my little gear holster because in that job occasionally you run into some god awful smells,
Oh,
and
really?
you can take some of that and just smear it on your upper lip, and you're not going to smell anything but vapor rub. So
That's
like
smart.
if you've got a dead body or something that's because
Rough.
smells were blood didn't bother me, but smells would get me a little queasy. So
Yeah, no, that's
they
smart though. I mean, so
yeah,
now I know what to do if I'm going up against someone who hasn't washed their gear. So now I can just do
yeah.
that little thing. That's a nice little
Yeah.
trick right there. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, something that we've done in all of these that's just been kind of fun is we've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest. And one of my previous guests was a New York based wrestler by the name of Andy Lee Ray.
Okay.
And the question that he posed is, what has been the best experience you've had with calling something on the fly in a match?
Huh. Calling something on the fly. Um, the thing that the thing that's probably my favorite wasn't me calling it on the fly.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know who the Offside Heroes are from
Yeah,
A4. Yes.
I do.
So there was a point where I was on the Offside Heroes where
Okay.
we were a heel faction, and we were running rampant in A4, and we came in one Thursday for A4, and we did this angle where I came out and I was like, all right, we gotta stop all the matches. Shoot Gabe and Jose Manuel, they need to practice, so they're gonna have a match against each other, and I'm gonna ref it, and you guys get to watch. And so it was just like kind of this. I think they wanted to fight each other just to see how it was, and this was just kind of a way to get into it. And so
Right.
I'm refing this match between them two, and um, and we do know the finish. The finish was going to be a double count out.
Okay.
And so I'm refing this match, and I'm technically on their team, so I'm like both refing and like rooting them on to beat each other up, as like part of training.
Right.
Um and the match is going on, and it's a really good match, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, this match is like really good. Oh my gosh, this finish is awful though. Like, I was just like, oh my god, like I started dreading, like, wow, this finish is bad, like compared to what kind of match they're having. But I'm the ref, like they're the ones doing the match, so I'm like, all right, we're just going to continue on. And so the match continues on, and we get to the end, and they're fighting on the outside. It finishes in a double count out, and me as the ref comes over and like, they both win, they're so good, they both win. And just like feeling like so corny about it. On the fly, they decided to double team and beat me up, and
Nice.
it was just, it fit perfectly. And I mean, I ended up getting kicked out of Knoffside. Like that ended up being the story to kick me out of Knoffside. But yeah, that was a pretty awesome on the fly moment that saved that match's like dumb finish that we had. And yeah, it's funny because like I was there, and then I kind of look at them, and I kind of see in their eyes like what's gonna happen. They just start double teaming me. They beat me up to the back. As they're beating me up, I'm like, oh my god, guys, this is awesome, good idea. Like, yeah, it was just like, it was such a great moment. And the only thing is that like it interfered with was I had a match later that night. So had I known that would have happened, I would have had the match beforehand, so I wouldn't come back out and
Right.
do like, yeah, it was a little awkward coming back out after that, but no, it was such a great moment, and it's like an attrition, or it's proof of like how good those guys are, because they're one of the best tag teams I've been around in my career, and the best in Georgia in my opinion, and can't wait to see where they go with that. So yeah, no, it was great to work with them, and such a fun moment right there.
Gotcha. So, since this is part of a series, do you have a question you would like to pose for the next guest?
Let me think. Let's see. What is the single most painful moment in your wrestling career, or in a match in your wrestling career?
I like that.
Yeah.
How would you answer that?
Very easy. Well, so I mentioned Cavron Canyon earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Cav is someone that goes hard. So I would say like probably my top 3, maybe 4 are probably from Cav. But the most painful thing that I ever experienced was Cavron Canyon. We were having a hardcore match, and he hit me in the back with a uh, spray bottle surrounded with poppers, like adult big firecracker poppers.
Oh,
So the thing was, and it's funny because it's like, you know, I had seen, popper bats where people get hit with it, and I was
yeah.
watching. I think I'd seen one earlier that week and saw them, and people were taking it with shirts on, and I was like, man, those guys are wusses. Like, Cav, when you hit me with this, lift my shirt up. You're gonna do it straight to my back. And the other thing was, leading up to it was, I went to the fireworks store to get them, and I asked the guy for the poppers, and he was like, he brought me over the aisle, and he was like, so here we have uh, the poppers here, and then we have the adult poppers. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a bitch. I'm going to go with the adult poppers. So they're these big ones. And yeah, and then so we get a spray bottle. Cav put it on like the end of this broom handle, put duct tape on it, and we put um, we put like 40 of them on it, like a lot. And
Oh.
so yeah, I tell Cav, I'm like, when you hit me, pull my shirt up and do it to my bare back. And so he did that. He lifted my shirt, wham, super loud. First off, I don't think anyone knew what the hell he was holding, so it scared everyone because it was very confusing. It was like, couldn't see what exactly was happening, but it like exploded on my back, and I just remember it felt like I was like my skin was on fire and I was burning. And so I rolled into the ring and was like trying to roll to put it out. It wasn't on fire, but it just felt like it was. And
Right.
yeah, that was definitely the most painful moment of my career.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, so we're pretty much at the end of things now. So do you have any upcoming shows or anything at all that you'd like to give some hype to?
Oh yeah. So this Saturday I'm going to be having a death match with the Hardcore Hillbilly. And it's at a secret location, where a concert is being where it's going to be like a concert mixed with wrestling match. So if you are interested in that, Maniac on Instagram, uh, reach out to Maniac on Instagram. You'll see me post about it, but you'll reach out to him for tickets and for the location. And then on June 29th, Blood and Honey, which has been a fantastic series, one that I was a part of the first 3 episodes. Though that series has just been so good from both like a match standpoint, from the layout of the postings on YouTube, and now there's bootleg DVDs of it. That returns to Atlanta, Georgia on June 29th at Monk's Meadery. So right in the middle of Atlanta, you got a deathmatch show happening, and I am pushing. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that asshole Nathan Mowry to have the third match between me and him.
Yeah, like you said, you got to break the tie.
Got to break the tie. And this is his show, so he has control over it. So I'm, if he doesn't want to fight me, then he's just a coward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And, before we wrap this up, just looking over at the Instagram chat, I see my buddy JT, who is the guitarist for an Atlanta-based band called Death Blender.
Okay.
You should definitely check them out.
I love the name already.
Yeah, man, and they like Spectre. They are a band with some lore.
Ooh.
So you need
Death
to check them out and surrender to the blender.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, it sounds bloody and gory. I love it.
It is. It's probably right up your alley.
Oh yeah.
And as far as what we've got coming up here on the Throwdown, like I said, this next week we're going to be on a 1 week hiatus. I'll be putting some stuff on social media, but we're not going to be having any live streaming back until Monday, June 9th. And that night at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'll be live with episode 125 with pro wrestler Black Dahlia. And then on Tuesday the 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I've got episode 126 with a guy who is an author of a novel called Stolen Ring Time that, interestingly enough, combines pro wrestling and sci-fi. I'm in the middle of reading it right now, and it's actually a pretty interesting read. The guy's name is Yan Kalandarov, and yeah, it's an interesting mix. You wouldn't think that pro wrestling and hardcore science fiction could go together, but they actually do. So.
Oh no, I've definitely seen it happen before. So, and being a film guy, I love that.
Yeah. And then Wednesday, June 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern, I've got episode 127 with a wrestler out of Camden, New Jersey, the most efficient Houdini. And I've actually had his wife Zenith on the show previously. So they are a husband and wife team, and they're both actually training out of Catch Point Pro Wrestling in Philadelphia, training under Drew Gulak, Wheeler Yuta, and Hot Sauce Tracy Williams.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a dynamic duo right there.
Oh, for sure. So anyway, before we wrap this up, Spectre, do you have any final words for the audience?
Expect me and expect violence from Spectre.
Absolutely. And, if you like what we've got going on here, do the old like, comment, share, and subscribe. I've got a link tree here. That QR code will take you to my link tree, and, check it out. Give me a follow on the socials. And in the meantime, like I said, we'll be back live on June the 9th. And in the meantime, be good to each other, love each other, and let's keep throwing down.